Bruce Campbell, when you first created the character of Ash Williams all the way back in 1980, did you realize that you were creating a character that you'd still be playing 30 years onward?
Yep, I knew it all along. Now, this character died 24 years ago. You know, it's been that long since Ash was around, and 91 is when we shot the last Evil Dead incarnation. So, no, you really have no idea. In the first Evil Dead, we didn't even think we were going to finish the movie. So this is all making it up as we're going along, tap dancing as fast as we can.
Well, thanks to the wonders of modern medicine or magic, you've been brought back for Ash versus Evil Dead. So
There's
you
a lot
just
of
finished
smoke and mirrors going on. It takes a village to raise an Ash.
Exactly. So the first season was very successful. Going into the second season, what were the thoughts of everybody involved in trying to build off of the first season?
Well, the first season, you get your team, you find out who your nucleus is for the show, your main characters. You establish their mission. Ash is brought back into service. He's got a couple people that were victims, essentially, that have the same sort of drive to wipe evil off the face of the earth. So by the end of it, they thought they were mission accomplished. And so, like a good little horror show at the beginning of season 2, well, it might not go as well as everybody thought. Turns out Ash has to go back home and defend his hometown. So he goes back to Elk Grove, Michigan, wherever that would be in Michigan. And what's great is we start to meet more of his, it's like seeing a teacher after school. We get to Ash's house, we see his room, we meet his father for the first time. So it's pretty cool. His world is expanding. And Ash has to, in the course of season 2, he's a pariah in his town. They know him as Ashy Slashy. He's an urban myth. He's a serial killer. So he's got to go back to his hometown, eat that, and defend them against the tyranny of evil. And we'll just see how he does.
Indeed. So how did Ash grow, as it were, from season 1 to season 2?
Ash grows sideways. He's a 1 step forward, 2 steps back kind of guy. You know what it is? He had to accept the mantle again of, you are foretold in a book. Yes, you're a loser, over the hill guy who doesn't really want to do this anymore, but you are spoken of in an ancient book. Your picture's in an ancient book. So it's time to get to the myth now. The myth of Ash. Well, let's get into the Joseph Campbell aspects of this idiot Ash. He's bigger than you think. He's not just a trailer park loser.
Indeed. What were some of the highlights of this season for you? Certain episodes or moments that really stood out that you think you guys really pulled off?
I did a little too much physical stuff season 2. Let myself get hit by a car, stuff like that. I don't think I'll be doing that anymore. So there's a few more boxes that have been checked. We pushed it, I think, in season 2. We tried to come up with a good variety of episodes, creatures, bad guys, but mostly that's what I like the most of it. And that's what appealed to me the most of. And what's great is, you know, the production team here is so great. They drove around Michigan and took pictures of everything. And the main street is actually patterned after Gladwin, Michigan, a town that I grew up in. My folks had a little bit of property in northern Michigan. So that's really been cool. And to bring idiots like Ted Raimi back and Ellen Sandweiss back to reprise old characters, like characters that are 30 and 35 years old. That was really cool to bring Ellen Sandweiss back as Ash's sister. And, you know, she's one of these great actresses who hasn't changed a bit. So it's really creepy to bring them back as characters. And then Ted comes back as a demon as well.
Let's talk a little more about those creatures. I mean, this is a franchise that's been around for 35, 36 years now. Upping the ante each time. Is it still hard to find new ways to scare people with these creatures, or to invent new ones?
It is difficult. There is a limited pool, but if you keep the world big, like if you keep pulling back the the evil world that Ash has discovered, like the layers of an onion, then you can really get into who might be in there. What are these creatures and what are their powers? So as long as you expand the world, we'll be fine. But it's time now not to just have the monster of the week. It's time now to figure out what does all this mean? It's getting deep.
One of the things that the Evil Dead franchise really started, and what Ash versus Evil Dead does so well, is that it mixes horror with comedy. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, we just don't try. I think if other people did it, they would try. To us, it just comes naturally. Like when I grew up, if a guy hit his hand with a ball peen hammer and you witnessed it, to me that was funny.
Mm-hmm.
Women don't think that's funny. They think of pain, childbirth. They like, why are you laughing at that? It's why we like the Three Stooges. Pain is funny. And with horror, when you put a character through so much, it reaches extremes that it can be funny. The first Evil Dead, I think we elicited laughs because a woman got a pencil in the Achilles heel, with the sound of an apple crunching. So a lot of it was over the top. So, people reacted in that way. But I think now the trick is, I got lost on my thread there. Where did I stop? I got lost in my own bullshit.
The trick of blending comedy with horror.
Oh, well, right. With that, I think that just comes from Evil Dead 2 is what sort of started it. Scott Spiegel co-wrote that with Sam Raimi. And Scott was the biggest Three Stooges fan of all. So they started to work in these gags in the middle of the show, and we thought it was fine. We called it splat stick. And I wouldn't recommend that people try it, and it doesn't work, then it's really weird. It's a weird enough genre as it is, but the goal here, in my opinion, is never to ruin people's lives. I want them to watch this show. It's a little bit of mind floss. A half hour goes by really quick, and then they can go, hey, let's watch it again.
Right.
I want people to not be morally offended by the show, and I also want people to not look at it as a downer. Horror is so easy to go dark and stay down. It's like, you know what? Not everybody can relate to that. I think people can relate to an idiot like Ash, who is the average guy. He's you. He's all of us trying to survive in a supernatural world. What I like about Ash is he doesn't have any military skills. We got a note from the network once about how he handled the gun incorrectly. We're like, yeah, but that's Ash. He's not a military guy. So anyway, that's what I hope people will take away from it, that it is really just entertainment. It's just a really bloody form of entertainment.
Well, there is kind of a operatic quality to the gore that I think helps helps push it into that kind of goofiness, that over the top quality,
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, we've gotten bigger and bigger. We have different devices now to deliver the blood. We have better blood delivery systems now, and we have little cannons that you can turn the dial and go for like a cannon, like a very focused splat, fused one. So we're getting very sophisticated down here.
You as an actor, working with all those special effects, I mean, how does that affect your performance?
Sadly, it's become completely normal.
Right.
Like, I think if I get on a drawing room comedy, I'm going to look at the actor next to me and go, so we just talk? Is that what happens in a scene? Because in Ash versus Evil Dead, I was talking to somebody the other day, there's never, the one thing you don't get as an actor in effects-driven stuff is you don't get any kind of sense of continuity. Like, your scenes are shots, really, not scenes. Like, a shot can only go so long in our show because something is about to jump out, or they have to re-rig something, or bring in a green screen, or I'm following a tennis ball on a stick, and that's the monster. None of it is normal acting. So it's really weird. When we get new actors on this show, it really freaks them out. You're looking at marks on the wall. Nothing is really there. You're going in short bursts. They bring in the blood cannon, hit you with that. They cut. They clean you up. They put fake blood on you. It's a whole process that we know now. But I can see to an actor starting out, it can be a really weird gig. And to me, it's going to be weird when I don't have this.
And what's extraordinary too is that you really do empathize with the character. You know, can you talk a bit about?
Well, good. I mean, we hope so, because again, Ash is not a superhero. He wasn't bitten by a radioactive spider. You know, he doesn't dress up like a bat and fly around Gotham. And if you don't think those are B movies, you got something else coming. The Spider-Man movies are not only B movie, they're 1950s B movie. Bad. Sorry, folks, that's a BS movie right there, Mr. Beck. I'm glad that the big movies have just caught up. You know, the superhero stuff, it's what people want, especially now. We want heroes, but we want heroes that we can relate to. Like me personally, there's some of the superheroes out there I can't relate to. You know, I can't. Superman, how can I relate to him? If I got kryptonite, we can have a normal conversation, but that's about it.
Right, absolutely. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about collaborating with Sam Raimi. You guys have been working together since you were in your early 20s. What has that collaboration been like all these years?
It's been really interesting to watch your buddy go from making Evil Dead's $350,000 movie to directing Spider-Man. You know, it was really great to go on the first set of the first Spider-Man. I played a ring announcer. He had 1,200 extras. We shot that scene, I think, for a week. And normally on a low-budget shoot, you'd be done in an afternoon with that sequence. But so it's really been fun to watch him. Sam has always been too big for us. His ideas have always been too big, too expensive. And now, finally, now he's making big Hollywood movies. It's like, that makes sense. Who can finally go, great, now I can do this crap how I want. And so that's been fun to see. It's been great to see a childhood buddy become Mr. Fancy Pants. And I love being on his sets now because everyone's kissing his ass, and I start talking back to him. And crew members who don't know me are like, what is this guy sassing this great all-powerful director? So it's enjoyable to watch. I don't take his shit, though.
Take us back to the beginning when you were making the first Evil Dead film. I mean, it was, like you said, $350,000. It really helped. It was one of the first successful independent films, and kind of proved that you could just make a movie and it'd be successful. Can you talk a bit about that?
Well, it was 4 years of agony is what that was. Our partners, it's me, Rob Tapert, Sam Raimi, and Rob was in trouble so much as a teenager. He had a family lawyer. And so Rob and Sam met in Michigan State University. We all started making these little amateur movies together. And when the three of us said it was time to get serious, Rob was the guy who said, you need a lawyer. And the lawyer's got to draw up some entity whereby you can present that in real lingo to an investor, speak their language. So we formed a limited partnership. It's not the sexy LLCs like today. You can only get a limited amount of investors, 15 investors. So thankfully, because the movie was successful, we weren't like the producers where your percentages are all screwed up. We actually knew where the money went when it all came in, and we're thankful to that family lawyer, Phil Gillis, to keep it all straight. So we raised the money, and then it was time to shoot the movie. So everything was a learning curve: how to raise the money, how to make a movie in 16 millimeter. 16 millimeter to us, it sounds amateur, but to us, that was a huge step. You had to rent cameras that weren't yours. You couldn't afford to buy them anymore. You had to have stupid stuff like insurance. You know, you had to sign contracts with actors. It was a brave new world, and thankfully we made plenty of mistakes, but nothing was fatal. We kept running out of money. We'd have to go back and borrow money. It was 4 years to make it. We shot it everyone says that movie is 1982 or 1983. They're full of crap. To me, it's 1979 because that's when we shot the movie. So 2 more years from now, that movie's going to be 40. And it's pretty interesting to see. So we just slugged it through on every respect. Little indies could still get into theaters. We still had drive-ins, in the early 80s, late 70s. So we caught up with a very good sales guy, Irvin Shapiro, when the movie was done. This guy goes back to doing publicity for the battleship Potemkin.
Wow.
And white silent movie. So this guy, Irvin Shapiro, was a sales agent. He saw the movie, took it under his wing, and that's when it started to sell around the world. And then it finally took on in the UK. In the United States, we couldn't get a distributor. Nobody wanted it. Pictures in the UK opened it, and we did big fat numbers, and then all of a sudden everybody in the US wanted it. Oh my God, we love this movie. So then we got to deal with New Line Cinema. New Line Cinema. And we made a deal with them for distribution. But luckily we kept the distribution separate, the United States and overseas. Because we got ripped off in the US, but the overseas distributors were actually very honest. And this is when video came in, early 80s. Right when we came out was right when home video became a craze. And we kind of got in on that. We were an early video.
And the films have had such a long staying power and have built up a rabid fan base that is carried on over to the show. Why do you think people love this franchise so much?
I think because they can relate to what's happening. It's sort of the little movie that could, Evil Dead. So I think sometimes people tend to pull for the little movies. Everything's a big giant movie now. This was the little. We were never a franchise. We didn't know what the word meant when we were making the movie. The first movie, we made Evil Dead. We thought, okay, well, we don't need to make any of these horror movies anymore. Our next movie is gonna be a comedy, action, thriller with dance numbers called Crime Wave. Movie died 1,000 deaths. I mean, that film wasn't released, it escaped. So we fell back to our roots. Evil Dead 2 basically saved us professionally. We were able to get that financed very quickly because of how well Evil Dead 1 did. And then we tried to do other things. We tried to do other things after Evil Dead 2. And Army of Darkness finally came up. And Army of Darkness pretty much put the nail in the coffin. That was like, okay, bang, bang, the Evil Dead franchise is D-E-A-D. Just because it cost too much, we went over budget. It didn't make any money. It cost $13 million. I'm not a mathematician, but I played one on TV. That it's not the way to go. So that really killed it. That's what most people don't realize. They're like, "Where's the Evil Dead?" I'm like, "It died. It's died on the operating table, pal. Dead on arrival." But you got these resurgences. Anchor Bay put out all they sub-licensed all 3 movies, put out a package. They repackaged it. They started that whole see how the sausage is made thing. Like, let's get a behind the scenes thing. Let's do storyboards. Let's put in the missing scenes. So they kind of recreated, they brought it back into people's consciousness. And, Rob Tapert had done a lot of television. I just finished doing Burn Notice for 7 seasons. So Rob and I we're more in a TV mentality. Sam was always the feature guy. And so Rob and I, we went to Sam and we went, hey, this thing is floundering forever. People will never shut up about it, but it doesn't seem like it wants to be a feature. Sam is making these $100 million movies. Are we going to make $100 million Evil Dead? That thing's going to die. And then the franchise is completely dead. So we thought maybe there's actually a way to give the fans more feature, because if you make a feature, it's like 90 minutes. So we pitched it to Sam. Thankfully, he kind of got on board. I think he saw that you could take Ash and really tell a story. And, 2 seasons, you've got 20 new episodes. That's 10 new hours. We could never achieve that by making movies. And the funny thing is, our content is unrestricted on Starz. What most people don't realize is if it was on cable, it'd be some R-rated piece of crap. If it was a feature film, it'd have to be R-rated. They wouldn't want an unrated feature film. So fans should really realize they got the best of both worlds. Content is unrestricted. Stars gave us the budget that we needed to really put on a show. So now for the first time, people can't complain about crappy production values. It's so nice to see that go away, because that's what people would mostly talk about in the early movies. You know, the crappy special effects, lousy dialogue, lousy actors. Thankfully, we now get to take our abilities as adults and apply it to this series, and it's been really refreshing. Because the crews down here in New Zealand, you know, these are the Hercules, Xena, Avatar, Lord of the Rings people. So they can do anything down here, and it's really been a good match.
Well, Bruce, congratulations on your work, and thank you so much for taking the time with Chad. It was a pleasure.
Thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a good one.
You're welcome. Have a good one. Bada boom. Thank you.
You're welcome.